Okay, so you want to know what it takes to be a specialist nurse, huh? You've come to the right place. We've got a ton of info here, and trust me, this isn't your average nursing gig.
You're telling me it's way more than just bandages and taking temperatures.
Right. I mean, we're talking next level nursing here.
Exactly. The level of specialization is incredible. These are nurses who are experts in really specific areas.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Well, you've got cardiology, oncology, even forensic nursing. It's like they're medical detectives.
Forensic nursing. That sounds intense. What does that even look like on a day-to-day basis?
Okay, so imagine a regular nurse might monitor your vitals, give you meds, all that important stuff.
Right.
But a specialist nurse, they're doing that and then some. They might create a specialized care plan for a patient with a chronic illness or help someone relearn to walk after an injury.
So they're dealing with more complex cases.
Exactly. And they're providing that really high-level specialized care that not just anyone can do.
This is fascinating. I'm looking at one of our sources here. It mentions something called ambulatory care. Do you know what that is?
Oh yeah, ambulatory basically means the patient isn't stuck in a hospital bed. So it could be anything from managing a wound care clinic to giving chemo treatments.
Wow, I had no idea. It seems like there's so much variety within this field.
Absolutely. It's way more diverse than most people realize.
And it sounds incredibly rewarding being able to make such a difference in people's lives.
It definitely is, but it's not always easy, though.
Yeah, I bet there are some downsides too. What does this RoleCatcher guide have to say about that?
Well, it doesn't sugarcoat things. It mentions burnout, long hours, and the emotional toll this job can take. Imagine dealing with patients and families going through really tough situations every single day.
Yeah, that takes a certain kind of strength and resilience, for sure.
Hmm.
So what kind of person thrives in that environment then? What are we talking about here?
You need someone with a rock-solid foundation in nursing, of course. But it goes beyond that, too.
Realize.
Well, all of these sources highlight the importance of soft skills.
Soft skills like what?
Communication, critical thinking, even social perceptiveness, those kinds of things. It's not just about knowing the medicine, it's about knowing the human.
Interesting. So you're saying being a people person is just as important as having all that medical knowledge.
100%. Let's say you're a pediatric oncology nurse. You're not just treating a child with cancer, you're teaching them and their family how to manage their condition, how to cope, and you're providing emotional support during what might be the scariest time in their lives.
That's a really powerful example. You know, it makes me think about my own experiences with nurses.
Oh, yeah.
Like when my grandmother was in the hospital.
You know, that reminds me of something else that's highlighted in these sources, the importance of patient advocacy.
Patient advocacy. Tell me more about that. What does that look like in action?
It means being your patient's biggest supporter, especially when they can't advocate for themselves.
Okay.
So that could be navigating insurance issues, coordinating care with other doctors and nurses, or even just making sure their wishes are heard and respected.
Wow, it sounds like specialist nurses have a much bigger impact than people realize. They're educators, advocates, and caregivers all rolled into one. It's no wonder they have such high job satisfaction rates.
Exactly. But getting your foot in the door can be tough. That's where that RoleCatcher guide comes in handy again. It actually maps out a career progression pathway so you can see how you might move up from entry level to those senior specialist positions.
That's got to be super helpful, especially for someone just starting to explore this field.
Right.
Can you walk us through those different stages? Like, what does that progression actually look like?
Sure. Typically, you'll need a nursing degree to get started. But the source also mentions that some aspiring specialist nurses major in healthcare management, public health, even psychology.
Really? I never would have thought of that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
But I can see how understanding human behavior could be a huge asset in this field.
Totally. And then once you've got that foundational knowledge, it's all about building experience. So you might do clinical rotations during your degree, then get some hands-on experience through internships or by volunteering.
And I'm guessing eventually you work your way up to leading a team or even influencing policy within your specialization?
You got it. There's a definite upward trajectory here, which is something a lot of people find appealing. And the learning really never stops. To reach those senior levels, you often need to specialize even further.
So we've talked about what specialist nurses do, the skills, the impact they have. But what about how someone actually breaks into this competitive field?
Well, traditionally, it's been all about networking, perfecting that resume, and crossing your fingers. But things are changing. Have you heard of this RoleCatcher platform?
Oh, yeah. The one that uses AI to help with the whole job hunting process.
That's the one. It's like having your own personal career coach in your pocket.
A career coach in my pocket.
Uh-huh.
That sounds like something straight out of Star Trek.
Right. But it's real, and it's already helping a ton of people, especially in competitive fields like nursing.
So how does it actually work?
So say you upload your resume.
All right.
This AI analyzes it, compares it to job descriptions you're interested in,
Mm.
and tells you exactly what to tweak.
No more guessing games about keywords?
Nope. It's all about working smarter, not harder.
I love it. But it can't do everything for you, can it? You still have to ace that interview.
True. But RoleCatcher can actually help you there, too.
Wait, really?
Yeah, they have this feature where you can practice answering interview questions
Oh, that's cool.
and even record yourself responding to prompts.
Okay.
Then their AI analyzes your video and gives you feedback on your body language, your tone, everything.
Whoa, so it's like having a virtual interview coach.
Exactly.
That's incredible. Okay, so speaking of interviews, what kinds of questions should someone be ready for when they're interviewing for a specialist nurse position?
Well, you'll definitely want to brush up on your clinical knowledge, but don't forget about those soft skills we were talking about earlier.
Right.
Interviewers are going to want to know how you handle tough patients, how you work in a team, how you deal with pressure.
It's about showing them you can handle the human side of things just as well as the medical side.
Exactly. For instance, they might ask you to describe a time when you had to advocate for a patient's needs,
Oh, I see.
or how you'd approach a situation where a patient's family disagrees with the treatment plan.
They're really trying to get a sense of your judgment and your people skills.
Absolutely.
So it's not just about what you know, it's about how you handle yourself in those high-pressure situations.
100%.
You need that confidence, but also that empathy and compassion.
It's a delicate balance for sure. And remember, you're often dealing with people at their most vulnerable.
That's so true, especially when you think about specialties like hospice or palliative care. Those nurses are dealing with some really heavy stuff.
Absolutely. And that actually brings us back to something we touched on earlier. Burnout. It's a major concern in this field.
Yeah, one of the sources even mentioned compassion fatigue. What is that exactly?
It's basically a state of emotional and physical exhaustion that can happen when you're constantly exposed to other people's trauma and suffering. You're giving so much of yourself that you end up depleted.
That makes sense. It sounds incredibly draining. So, what can nurses do to protect themselves from burning out?
Self-care is crucial.
Like what kinds of things?
Think exercise, healthy eating, meditation, even just making time for hobbies and things you enjoy outside of work. It's all about recharging your batteries.
So you need to make time for yourself even when it feels impossible.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to lean on your support system, whether that's your family, your friends, or a therapist.
That's good advice for anyone, really, not just nurses.
Totally. We all need people we can count on.
So true. Okay, so we've talked about the importance of self-care, but what about continuing education? It seems like the learning never really stops in this field.
You're absolutely right. Healthcare is constantly evolving. So to stay at the top of your game, you've got to keep learning and growing throughout your entire career.
Does that usually mean going back to school for another degree?
It can. Some nurses decide to pursue a master's or a doctorate in nursing practice to specialize even further, maybe move into a leadership role, or even get into research.
Wow.
But there are also tons of other continuing education options out there too. Attending conferences, taking online courses, participating in workshops, those are all great ways to stay current with the latest advancements.
So it's about being proactive and taking ownership of your own professional development.
Exactly. And the best part is a lot of hospitals and healthcare organizations offer tuition reimbursement programs or even paid time off for professional development.
Oh, wow. So they're actually invested in helping their nurses further their education.
They recognize that it benefits everyone involved,
Yeah.
especially the patients.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's not just on the individual nurse to figure it all out. The institutions themselves are playing a role in supporting their growth.
Precisely. And that says a lot about the value they place on skilled and knowledgeable nurses.
Okay, so we've talked about the challenges, the rewards, the skills, the education. It's clear that being a specialist nurse is a demanding but incredibly rewarding career path. But what I really want to know is what drives these individuals? What keeps them going when things get tough? What makes it all worthwhile?
At the end of the day, it's about making a tangible difference in people's lives. They get to use their knowledge and skills to help people heal and cope during some of the most difficult times imaginable. It's about having that impact, really making a difference.
It's about something bigger than just a job.
100%.
Yeah.
It's about dedicating yourself to something that you're truly passionate about. And for a lot of specialist nurses, that passion is making the world a healthier place.
One patient at a time.
Exactly. So for anyone listening who's feeling that pull toward this career, what advice would you give them? Where do they even start?
Ooh, good question.
First things first, do your research. Don't just rely on what you see on TV or read online.
Right.
Talk to actual nurses. Shadow them if you can. Get a feel for what it's really like day to day.
Nothing beats firsthand experience, that's for sure.
And while you're at it, really think about what matters to you. What are your strengths? What kind of mark do you want to leave on the world?
Because when you find a career that aligns with your values and what you're good at, that's when the magic happens.
Absolutely. And hey, maybe check out those AI tools we talked about earlier.
Oh, yeah.
RoleCatcher.
Exactly. They can help streamline the whole job hunting process, which frees you up to focus on gaining experience and building your skills.
Smart.
Yeah.
This has been an incredible deep dive. We've covered so much ground, from those essential technical skills to the importance of human connection, the career path, and even the role of AI.
It's a lot to unpack.
It is. So if you had to leave our listeners with just one key takeaway, what would it be?
I'd say if you're passionate about healthcare and you have that drive to learn and help others, don't be afraid to take the leap. Explore this path. Do your research, talk to nurses, and see if it feels right for you.
It's about taking that first step, even if it's outside your comfort zone.
You never know what incredible journey you might find yourself on. So true. Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into the world of specialist nurses. But before we go, here's something to think about. Imagine yourself 5 years from now. What kind of impact are you making as a specialist nurse? That's all for this episode of The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.